Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game They're going to continue the series Big Decomp Energy, where I talk about all the N64 decomps, recomps, and PC ports that are out now. And this is an updated video. The first 13 minutes are going to be new compared to the last time I ran this, and then everything after that will be stuff that's already come out. So just basically treat this as its current Bible of how many different N64 decomps, recomps, and PC ports we have. Because honestly, trying to find a centralized database or website that lists every single one of them can be quite difficult, because I swear every site misses one game that the other site has. So every single game you're watching in this video you can play on your PC today, either via a static recompilation or a PC port. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But I've been saying since I started this series that recomps and PC ports are going to be the future of retro gaming, and it definitely is the case now. So going into the first game, Banjo-Kazooie has been recompiled and released by Mr. Wise Guy, and I will absolutely say this is one of the best recomps out there. Not only is Banjo-Kazooie an incredible game, it is a game that I think 100% benefits from additional performance. Although you will see there that Tui got stuck behind a tree, and that's just because in 16:9 some of the assets are hiding, waiting to come in off screen. You can see that when you go to widescreen. But short of that, this recomp is absolutely outstanding. You have dual analog control for the camera, you're gonna have frame rates to whatever you want them to be. You can even go ultra wide in this one. And the best part is it also supports 2 of Kirko Mod's games in the Banjo-Kazooie universe, so you're really getting 3 full recomps out of 1. And that again is just something that I absolutely love to see. I want to see all these recomps and PC ports in the future get support for the different ROM hacks out there. So imagine if you could play something like B3313 in the Super Mario port Ghostship. I just love to see it and absolutely give these things even more life, and they're already giving these games a metric crap ton of additional life in the first place. But Banjo-Kazooie looks absolutely stunning as a recomp, and I love to see stuff like this happen, because this is one of the most requested games on the channel when people talked about recomps or PC ports they wanted to see, and now today you're going to have exactly that. There's so many different options for the camera controls, for the graphics and everything else. You can really kind of articulate and decide what sort of Banjo-Kazooie experience you want. If you don't want to go widescreen, you can totally go 4:3 with the improved frame rate and graphics. If you want to go ultra wide, you can do that as well. It's one of those things, this just gives you the ultimate control to play the game however you want. And if there ever was a game on N64 that I think needed better frame rates, Banjo-Kazooie is definitely in the top 10. And hopefully one day we see something like a Conker's Bad Fur Day recomp, also developed by Rare, because if there is one game that tops the list of terrible frame rates for a 3D platformer, Conker 100% does it. And I'd also love to see Donkey Kong 64 as well with the Tag Anywhere ROM in a recomp or PC port. But as far as these things are concerned, Banjo-Kazooie coming to PC, absolutely stunning, and this is now, in my opinion, the best and only way to play the game. Sure, the N64 original has its nostalgia, but for modern audiences as well as retro audiences, you can't do any better than Banjo Recomped. But leave me a comment down below and you tell me if you played this one yet before and what your thoughts are. But don't worry, we still have another 10 minutes of brand new recomps and PC ports to go through until we get to the back half of the video, because every single thing's been happening all at once and I absolutely love to see it. Now let's get into some of the new stuff, because I've absolutely taken this video apart more times than a Lego set owned by an 8-year-old. That's because every single time I upload it, someone has to come out with a new recomp or PC port, and while I'm not complaining, it means I have reworked this video so much it kind of feels like Marge Simpson's fancy dress from that one episode of The Simpsons. But obviously I was 10 out of 10, maybe even 69 out of 10 excited when Bomberman Hero finally got a recomp. It is just straight up amazing, and I'm absolutely so glad it is out. So this is some of the new additions to the video, and if you've never played Bomberman Hero before, I can't stress out enough, this is such a special, unique game. Yes, it's a 3D platformer on a system that had more than its share of 3D platformers, and yes, it's not going to be for everyone, but it does things so differently, and has, in my opinion, one of the top 5 best soundtracks ever set to a video game. The fact that we can actually play this in high definition with a better frame rate is a straight up win for retro gaming and Bomberman fans out there, myself incredibly included, because the entire time I've been talking about N64 decomps, recomps, and PC ports, when I would ask people if you could snap your fingers and make one game appear, my answer was always Bomberman Hero. And now that is the case, I'm going to ask you guys the same question, and I'm going to give you a different answer. Now officially, Castlevania Legacy of Darkness is the one I would love to see next, because that game would definitely be a lot better with a full 3D analog camera as well as a frame rate that didn't jog. But Bomberman Hero, it absolutely is just straight up one of my favorite games ever made, and the recomp is absolutely outstanding, and you're missing out if you haven't played it. If you have played it, leave me your thoughts down below and you tell me, because a lot of the reason for this video is that when people look up a list of all of the different recomps and PC ports for N64 games, they're able to easily find it. But I said I had one of the best soundtracks ever made, so it's going to be the next soundtrack sample. Listen, and I'll be right back with more recomps and ports. I mean, it's absolutely one of my favorite games ever made, but moving into a new PC port, one that we talked about on the channel twice now, Super Smash Bros. Has a PC port, and yes, it is developed with the usage of AI, but the developer was very upfront about that, and with all of the improvements and updates, it is now an extremely fun way to play something like Smash Bros. And right now, netcode is in development, at least for the recording of this audio, and I'm going to try to get this thing out this weekend. It is Tuesday right now, because I know if I sit on it too long, I'm going to have to open the damn thing up again and add another recomp report, which is a good problem to have, but also an annoying problem to have. So if it actually has netcode by the time this goes out, I will leave a link in the description below. And honestly, even though this is made by AI and that seems to upset a few people, I would say 9 out of 10 people are perfectly fine with it because it is functioning properly, the developer is supporting it, and even getting more people in on the netcode and other fixes, because basically any of the bugs the initial release had have been cleaned up at this point in time, and it is a very playable Super Smash Bros. And don't forget, a lot of times you're going to have more than one port or more than one recomp of projects. Think about like stuff like The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask. We have recomps and PC ports from different teams. Or something like Star Fox 64, we have a PC port and a recomp of that as well. So just because one port uses AI doesn't mean the next one's going to, and I'm sure by the time we're done, we're going to have more than one way to play Smash Bros. On PC. But in the meantime, it exists today, and I will say, a lot of you have been having a lot of fun with it. A lot of the comments have been that it is a good time, and honestly, running at a higher frame rate, higher internal running resolution with some enhancements is a very fun thing, because honestly, basically every single N64 game could definitely use a little bit of a smoother feel and a little bit of a cleaner look, at least in my opinion. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the N64 hardware. I have a very large collection of hardware and original carts, and I definitely still play them on my analog 3D, and of course I use Mr. FPJ to basically run N64 games that I don't want carts. But these PC ports and everything else have been a massive hit with everybody, and trust me, you're going to see a lot more of these, and I'm sure I'll be updating this video probably in the next couple months or so with new information. And one good Bomberman deserves another, and basically before Bomberman Hero Recomp came out, we had the Bomberman 64 Recomp, and I absolutely love this one. And even though Bomberman Hero is my favorite, followed by Second Attack and the original Bomberman 64 in third place, it is a 3 Bomberman pun, very much intended race of incredible games. Each one of these is fun in their own right, each one of them absolutely does something new and unique with the formula, and now we're just basically one 3D Bomberman game away from having the trifecta of games being recompiled for PC. But don't forget, there is a Japanese exclusive 2D Bomberman on the N64 that we really haven't heard any mention of, so to get every single Bomberman game on N64 onto the recomp page, we're going to need that Japanese exclusive as well. But the same developer made this that made Bomberman Hero, and they absolutely nailed the brief when it came to making some really incredible and fun experiences. But you leave me a comment down below and you tell me, what is your favorite Bomberman game on N64 and in general? For me, it's pretty easy. Bomberman Hero on N64 and Saturn Bomberman on the Sega Saturn. the best 3D and best 2D Bomberman games ever made, and I will definitely go to my metaphorical grave insisting that that is the only right answer. But I always love hearing your guys' answers as well, and the really friendly debate over what people like more so than others. And of course, because I love Bomberman and I love the soundtrack, it's going to be the next soundtrack sample as well. So go ahead and listen for 45 seconds, but come back. I still have every other game that's already existed, including one that got added recently as well. But here comes the Bomberman music. It's amazing, and I'll be right back. Now just recently, the Mega Man N64 Recompilation got a big update, making the game 100% playable from start to finish. And while it does still have a few visual bugs, it is a fun time. And I totally get maybe the Mega Man Legends game on PlayStation 1, which is the same game as Mega Man 64, might be a little bit better of a game. It's awesome to have something like this as well. And because the N64 only ever got the original Mega Man Legends, never got 2 or Tron Bon, it really is the only thing we're going to be able to play on Recomp status. But it is always fun to get these improvements, and honestly, Mega Man 64, Mega Man Legends, a straight up 10 out of 10 game, and one that I wish more people would play. The people that know this franchise and have played all the games absolutely love it, and are still heartbroken to this day, as am I, that Mega Man Legends 3 was cancelled by Capcom when it was basically in active development. But this is so much improved from the last time we talked about it, and as far as this is concerned, I would definitely give it a shot. After this one, we're going to be moving into all of the other games that have existed for a while, and I don't think I've forgotten anything, but I can't wait to see the comments saying, Video Game Esoteric, you forgot one, because I have pulled more things in and out of this video than I ever have in any sort of video before, and honestly, pulling out really isn't my strong suit in life. That is a joke, folks. I am child-free. But all jokes aside, Mega Man Legends 64 is just so good, and now this new recomp improving all of the graphics and performance, it is an extremely good way to play. And in my experience, this versus DuckStation, the PlayStation 1 version, I get a more consistent frame rate here on the recomp than I do on DuckStation, but DuckStation may have the better graphics as far as the actual enhancements are concerned. But honestly, this isn't a video reviewing one version versus the other. This is a video talking about all of the different N64 recomps and PC ports that you can play today. And after this next soundtrack sample, we're going back into the video I made and then scrapped like a month ago, because all of those ports and recomps have obviously already existed, so you can play each and every one of them. But again, you leave me your comment down below and you tell me if you could snap your fingers right now and make one game show up on N64 going over to PC as a recomp or PC port, which one would it be? I feel like Extreme G is going to win because I always hear that game in the comments. But short of that, here comes the next soundtrack sample, and I'll be right back into the original video with all of the additional information that you're definitely going to want to see. But enjoy! But starting right off, Ghostship is the most recent release, bringing a new PC port of Super Mario 64 to everyone, and honestly, this from its original version has been absolutely outstanding. All of the amazing frame rates, the widescreen support, everything else you could possibly want, including modding. There's no such thing as too many ports or recomps of Super Mario 64, so having Ghostship available by the Ship of Harkinian team is 100% something you're definitely going to want to check out. And if you missed the video, I will leave a link in the description below so you can actually watch it, so you can see a little bit more of this footage, because I'm keeping all of these bite-sized 2-minute segments. But honestly, Super Mario 64 is the quintessential iconic game for the N64, showing that Nintendo could deliver an amazing 3D platformer. And even though playing the original version on something like a real N64, Analog 3D, or Mr. FPJ is still incredible, having something like this that modernizes the game and gives you a new way to play it is absolutely outstanding. And because this does have mod support, it's one of those things you're going to get an even better version of Super Mario 64 if you want to, or you can absolutely just make this thing 4x3, improve improve the frame rate and basically have a full vanilla looking game. I just really love that this gives you the options to kind of play around and do whatever it is you want, and that really is what all of these recomps and PC ports are doing. They put the power in your hand to kind of articulate the experience you want to have, because I would say at this point in time, the de facto best way to play Super Mario 64 is going to be on PC in one of these versions, whether it's Ghostship or other, than actually on real hardware unless you want to be there for the nostalgia. Let's do a soundtrack sample early in this video so you can hear just how good the audio is out of Ghostship, but come back because I still have 2 more brand new recomps and PC ports to talk about today. Now moving over to Quest 64's Recomp, the #1 game ever made in the history of video games, not just on N64 but in general. Brian here is off on a quest and he's going to be doing it in Recomp style. All jokes aside, I know Quest 64 is basically a meme at this point in time in the N64 community and in the Mr. FPJ community, so much so that they ended up jokingly banning the word Quest 64 on the Mr. Discord for like a month just as a kind of a laugh. But honestly, even if Quest 64 isn't the most amazing game ever made, it is worth playing, and honestly, in this new recomp, it's going to be the best version of the game, because it does support mods. I'm sure in the future you're going to see a lot of things like the French vanilla version of the game come over to the recomp, and you're going to see a lot of people improving the code and just kind of playing around with what Quest 64 could be. Because if you aren't familiar with the evolution and development history of this game, the planned game and what you're supposed to get was completely different than what actually shipped. That just seems to be the developers ran out of time, money, or both, and had to get the game out in the world. So a lot of what Quest 64 is kind of feels void of actual content. There's big open areas where nothing happens, but you can tell the developers plan on fleshing this out way more and just ended up running out of time, so much so that in interviews with the dev team they've said what you were supposed to get and what you got were 2 different things. But now with a recomp version of this game, if there's any diehard Quest fans out there that do want to go in and play around with it, you're going to be able to kind of make this whatever it is you want. And don't forget, these mods are basically made by communities, and I'm sure the Quest 64 community isn't massive, so you might not see much, or it might take a long time for people to actually get these things done. But that is totally fine. In and of itself, the recomp is worth playing, it's worth checking out, and it definitely is the best version of not a bad game, but a best version of a game that definitely had a lot of potential and just struggled to live up to it. But if you do love Quest 64, leave me a comment down below and you tell me why. Now moving over to the 3rd addition to this video, Dr. Mario 64 also received a recomp, and that is absolutely awesome as well. Now this one's interesting because obviously it does not use 3D graphics, it is using 2D sprites and 2D backgrounds, so you're not going to see as fundamental of a difference in something like the Dr. Mario 64 version as you are in the other versions that we've seen in Recomp and PC ports. But that doesn't mean it isn't important. It allows you to improve the graphics in some aspects, and I would love to see some mods in the future where you can actually play Dr. Mario, the N64 version, via friends online. Because don't forget, not every single mod is going to be a graphic mod. Sometimes they're randomizers, sometimes they could be things like online servers. I'm not guaranteeing that is what's going to happen, I'm just saying it leaves the door open for the possibility of that occurring. And even though I'm not very good at Dr. Mario, I've always enjoyed playing it, and it is another in the long list of N64 games that have gotten recomps or PC ports. And before you ask the difference, I am working on the video. It is just the fact that I have been moving from one house to the other with my wife and rebuilding my studio, so I am just a few weeks behind where I'd like to be on that one video. But you'll see here in the menu, very familiar looking. You have all the options you could possibly need, but again, it is a 2D game, so you're not going to get the same dramatic visual improvement as you would on something like Super Mario 64, Star Fox, or any of the other 3D games. And honestly, that's totally fine because it shows us that games in 2D can benefit from the recomp process as well, and that really makes me want Mischief Makers. That game is basically almost all 2D. Maybe if it used a little 3D trickery, I'm not aware of it, but it would actually benefit from a recomp, just like Dr. Mario 64 does, and that definitely is going to be fun in the future, because I'm pretty sure in 5 to 10 years you're going to have near to the entire N64 library available as at least a Recomp or PC port. Let's do a Dr. Mario soundtrack sample so you can hear how good it sounds in the Recomp, and then we'll go back to the original video that has the list of all the other Recomps. So enjoy! Now the first game you're going to see here is Star Fox 64. I know what you're thinking, Starship released about a year ago. Interestingly enough, this is actually a static recomp, not a PC port, but it is made by the same developer. And just so you know, the link to get this one is in the description below as well. And I did a video on this because I actually talked with the developer, had a phone call with him, and just kind of went over some of his work. That way I could better articulate exactly what the differences were in the video. And I will say Starship is incredible, the recomp is incredible. You now have two different ways to independently play something like Star Fox 64 on your PC, but I would say as far as the static recomp is concerned, you're getting a better frame rate across most of the game, especially in areas where the lava you see here is drawn at 60 frames, not 30 frames. You're also going to get a lot of different VI pipeline implementations that are going to look different than Starship, including a lot of that film grain over the top most of Star Fox 64, and it really is fun to have something like a PC port and a static recomp at the same time. But since I last updated this video, the static recomp is new. It is out. I can't recommend it enough. And even though YouTube compression usually steps on these things pretty hard, if you look at that ship body there and you look at the Mission 5 transparent box, you can see a little bit of that actual moving film grain, for lack of a better term, and that is something that Starship lacks, where the recomp has. And again, the really nice thing is here, the same developer made both of these, so I can say one might be better than the other, and I can't offend anyone whatsoever because they made the same exact thing, and that is always fun, so I don't actually have to worry about hurting people's feelings. I think everyone who makes these things absolutely does a 10 out of 10 job. And this was just a really fun end of the year treat, and there is going to be mod support coming to it as well as a lot of other features, so I'm sure you're going to be hearing a lot more about Star Fox 64 on the static recomp side of things in 2026, but it is out now. You can go ahead in the description and grab the link, move over to GitHub and get this thing loaded up on your PC. And I can think of a lot worse ways to spend that time off between Christmas and New Year's and playing Star Fox 64. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me what's the one game you want to play and beat in this actual vacation. For me, it's Donkey Kong Bonanza. I'm going to fully admit I bought that game day one and it is literally still sitting on my desk in full shrink wrap. That is just because that my wife and I, Mrs. Esoterica, will be moving to a brand new house in January, so trust me, if you think doing videos with a little bit of a sore throat is hard, wait until I make a full slate of videos. I'm also moving at the same time. Now, in the original video, the Mario Kart 64 PC port spaghetti cart as well as the Mario Kart 64 static recomp had not been released yet. They were just kind of on the horizon, and that definitely is why I'm starting out the video with some Mario Kart 64. And the nice thing is, at least on the PC port side, spaghetti cart just recently updated as well last month, so definitely something you want to check out. This is probably my favorite actual game of 2025 when it comes to any sort of recomp or PC port. And as far as which one is better, honestly, they're kind of the same side of a different coin. One, the recomp is going to give you some HD textures and modability. Two, the PC port is going to give you some other features that the recomp doesn't have. So you can try them both out and decide which one works for you. Just make sure you play one or the other, because honestly, this brings Mario Kart 64 into an entirely new world. It has a ton of extra frames, it has widescreen support, support, and a ton of other features that are going to make it feel a lot more modern than it is on N64, because even though I do love my N64 collection or my FPGA devices to play those games, just something like this makes it look a little bit fresher, and it takes away that Vaseline look, and that is why definitely a game I can't recommend playing enough, and one of the reasons I wanted to update this video. Because I'm sure in 2026 we're going to see a lot more decomps, recomps, and PC ports come over to N64, because some are definitely in active development right now but don't have playable versions, so I'm only talking about games that you can download and play today, and every single GitHub for these ports or recomps is in the description below, so you'll be able to grab the files, at least the non-gaming files there, so you can enjoy them yourself. But leave me a comment down below and you tell me if you've played the PC port or recomp for Mario Kart 64 before. I know a decent amount of you have definitely checked it out, but honestly there's a lot of people learning about recomps and PC ports from the decompiled games as we speak, so I love keeping videos like this up so they're able to find out where they all are. Now moving over to the second new game in this video, Duke Nukem 0 Hour got a decomp and then very quickly a static recomp from the same maker that did the Mario Kart 64 recomp. And even though this is very alpha status and basically it's just a proof of concept, it is something that you can sit down and play today. And I did talk to some people and they basically gotten very close to finishing the game, but then they got busy and weren't able to play the last few levels. So my assumption is you can play this game from start to finish, but don't actually quote me on that until I hear somebody actually finish it up. But this is a game on N64 that I said when it got decompiled absolutely needs a recomp or PC port because it definitely has some janky controls and a lot of performance issues. And at least on the performance issues side, most of that has been fixed up even in the first pass of this actual recomp. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot more controller mods and mods to the game in general when you actually start playing this thing, maybe sometime next year when it gets updated again. But this is awesome because it is a really fun Duke Nukem, and because it does have a first-person cheat in the game, if this thing had widescreen support and mouse and keyboard support on the recomp, you basically have what would be considered a air quotes lost Duke Nukem first-person shooter. But you leave me a comment down below and you tell me, did you play this one back in the day or not? I would be curious. It's just one of those games, absolutely every single time I play it, it 100% hits, and it definitely is great here in the recomp. But I'm going to do a soundtrack sample of this game so you can hear just how good the audio is, and after that soundtrack sample is over, we're back to the original video, so enjoy, and I'll be right back.
Oh, save me, please! What a hero!
But starting off, we're going to talk about the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask because one of the recompilation projects has hit 1.2 version status as far as upgrades are concerned, bringing in an entirely new mod engine into the game, letting you do a ton of crazy things with the actual recomp. There's also 2 ship to Harkinian as well, so this is a game that you have multiple options on when it comes to playing a recompilated game on your actual PC. Whichever version you pick, you really can't go wrong, and honestly, this is my de facto favorite way to play Majora's Mask at this point in time. Getting the widescreen support, getting an improved frame rate, getting the mod support, cheats, and everything else just makes this feel like a brand new game even if you played it a dozen times before. And it probably is, of all of the different recomp projects right now, my favorite one, because I absolutely love Majora's Mask back in the day, and I had the 3DS port as well, but there's something about the original being recompiled here for PC that just 100% works, especially with the very vibey artistic flair that Majora's Mask delivers, being a darker, more atmospheric game than Ocarina of Time. It's just one of those games that when I played it back in the day, it 100% hit, and I have such a ton of nostalgia for it. And honestly, here with the dual analog controls, with the increased frame rate, with all of the different mods if you want to switch masks quickly, it just does absolutely everything perfectly. And that's all you really want out of a recomp. You want to play the same game you played before, but you want to play it in a new modern lens with all the quality of life improvements. This is going to be the same campaign, it's going to be the same story, the same visuals, and the same audio. It's just going to sound and look better and have all of those quality of life improvements. And I've stated in previous videos, I really do feel like these recomps don't just keep these games alive for us, the people that grew up with them in the 90s playing Nintendo 64. I really do think it brings them to a modern audience because kids today, maybe they're 16, maybe they're 22, didn't grow up with a Nintendo 64, so trying to get them to play Majora's Mask on a real Nintendo 64, the Mr. FPGA core, it might feel a little bit old and antiquated, but a kid today who's played something like Breath of the Wild or the sequel and wants to play more Zelda games might actually play this and think to themselves, okay, it's not as graphically impressive, but the game still hits and it looks like it should, so I'm 100% in. So from everything here in the footage, I just absolutely love this, and it really is my favorite recomp of the entire bunch. And again, that's just down to nostalgia for this being my favorite game, but we still have 6 more games to cover. But that being said, what's your #1 recomp request down below? For me, I'd love to see Sin and Punishment because I feel like that game could use a lot of help getting modernized, but for nostalgia purposes and love purposes only, Bomberman Hero is my favorite Nintendo 64 game and one of my favorite games of all time. That is just absolutely one I would love to see in a recomp port. As we come into the fairy fountain here again, just look how absolutely stunning this is. I love the mixture of both the old models with the low poly count along with the higher internal rendering resolution and all of the little bumps to the textures. It's basically a combination of old and new put together, and it's put together so incredibly well, and I have finished this game from start to finish 100% completing it. I ran into no bugs, no glitches, or any other issues whatsoever. So as far as Majora's Mask is concerned, whichever version you decide to play, you're in for an absolutely amazing time. One of the best games ever made, and honestly one of the best recomps ever made across all platforms. Though if I really had to answer, I would say my most impressive recomp that I've talked about so far has got to be Sonic Unleashed on the Xbox 360, just down to how complex something like that really would have been. Let's move over to the next game in the series. This is Super Mario 64, specifically Render 96. It has full ray tracing support. I'm playing this on my 3080 Ti, and it is another port of a Nintendo 64 game you can download today. And just so you know, all of the links to the different GitHubs and installation pages are down in the description below, so you can use this video as a minor database of all the projects. And this one sounds even better than real hardware in my opinion, so it's the first soundtrack sample. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds. I'll be right back with more games.
Yahoo!
In my opinion, that's definitely the best track from the entirety of Super Mario 64, and it sounds even better here coming out of the Render 96 version of the game. And with real-time ray tracing, you can see here everything is casting a light and a shadow, and all of that light is motivated coming from the correct directions. This is just another awesome version of the game. Now, at least on my installation, I did have a little bit of a visual glitch on Mario's face, but I do not keep my actual GPU driver anywhere near current because for the most part it is used specifically just in DaVinci Resolve to render projects, both my own as well as clients, and you don't change the driver if you don't have to. Once you get onto something stable that just works, you kind of leave it alone, which is not what you would do at all if you were using it primarily for gaming purposes. But honestly, for my work, I just leave my system kind of stable and stagnant and only update when absolutely necessary, because 9 times out of 10 some sort of update just absolutely breaks my workflow and it drives me nuts. But as far as Super Mario 64 is concerned, I will leave links in the description below. There's 2 different ways to play this game on PC, and both of them are absolutely incredible. Now, one that came out just recently I did a video on is the decomp and recompilation of Star Fox 64, and this is definitely another game that I feel like 100% benefits from the improved graphics, the widescreen support, and more specifically the frame rate. Just this feels like a smoother, better version of a game that you know, love, and remember, and it is probably my favorite Star Fox game of all time. So getting this here on PC with all of these new visual effects, all the quality of life improvements, and everything else that this recomp brings to the table, it is the de facto best and most modern way to play something like Star Fox 64, and honestly, I would use Mr. FPJ real hardware and basically leave any of the NSO offerings for any of the games in this video to dead last. And that's not because I don't like Nintendo. Sure, I poke fun at some of their lawsuits on the channel every once in a while, but NSO emulation just really isn't up to snuff for some of these games. Pretty much all of them have some sort of frame pacing issues or other glitches that make them kind of look uglier than even the source material. But as far as this recomp is concerned, it absolutely looks stunning. It has all of the models and visual effects that you remember from the original Star Fox 64, just makes everything look better. And I think this might be the most visually improved game of the entire bunch, especially when we move to some of the later levels, like the lava planet here. Everything just looks incredible. Those polygons undulating, making it look like lava waves. The skybox in the background, it still has that Nintendo 64 blur, just sharpened up a bit. It is still the exact same game that you played back in the day. It just feels that much more modern. And the great thing is, if you have your PC hooked up to a television or a nice monitor, you can just go 4K OLED on this thing and it makes it look absolutely stunning. And it really does make me think Nintendo is long overdue for a new Star Fox game, so hopefully on Switch 2, when that launches, we do get another announced title, because Star Fox on the Wii U, fun but definitely flawed, and I feel like that kind of put Nintendo off on giving us another Star Fox game. But in the meantime, you have Star Fox 64 recompiled for PC, and it is the best way to play this. And just so you know, all of the games I'm featuring on this video, you can play them from start to finish. You can watch the credits scroll, there should be no game-breaking bugs, glitches, or otherwise that are going to interfere with your fun. And honestly, the Star Fox 64 soundtrack was always incredible, and it sounds even better coming out of the Recomp version of this game, so it's going to be your second soundtrack sample. Go ahead and listen for 35 seconds, but come back because I still got more Recomp games to show you that you can play today.
Don't mess up that R-wave! It's quiet. Too quiet.
Hey, what?
Be careful, it's a trap! Use bombs wisely!
Classic soundtrack, classic game, and a modern new lens to view it through. Now moving over to Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, this is one that's been out for a while now, but in a lot of the recomp and decomp videos I've been talking about, people keep leaving comments saying that they wish they could play Ocarina of Time on PC in this method. Well, the reality is, and the good news is, you can do that today, and it is, in my opinion, an even better way to play the game than real hardware, and that's just because not only doesn't it have the graphical improvements, 16:9 support, but it's also got a boss rush mode, a randomizer built in, as well as some of the beta elements from Ocarina of Time, the things you saw in videos and magazines back in the day that never actually came out when the game shipped on cartridge, because we got so many previews for Ocarina of Time. And when people played it, if they were eagle-eyed and read a lot of previews, they would notice that a lot of the things they saw were not included in the final build, and honestly, so much of that information has been recovered and remade and added into different versions of the game. Having it here, at least in part, is a ton of fun, and this is another one that just excels in this recomp version. Now granted, some of the things like the actual pre-rendered backgrounds aren't going to look as good as the rest of everything else, and that's just because they don't scale as well as actual 3D polygons. This is one of the few games that actually use those pre-rendered backgrounds, so you'll see here it's a little bit of a total mismatch between Link and the enemies and that actual Temple of Time in the background. When you get into sort of any interior that doesn't use pre-rendered backgrounds, like inside the Dagu tree right here, it just looks stunning. And again, just like Majora's Mask, this is just going to be such a fun way to play. You can do it in native frame rate, 20 frames per second at 4:3. You can dial the frame rate up to 60 or 120 frames per second in widescreen support. There are cheats enabled. You can basically just craft the version of this game that you want, and that really is nice. And that's why I love all of these projects. They don't just make games look prettier, they don't just make them control better or sound better, they also give you, the player, the ability to kind of craft the experience they want. And the boss rush mode is fun, but if you've never played a Legend of Zelda randomizer, I can't stress enough just how much fun the Ocarina of Time one is. Even if you know this game from front to back, if you play a randomizer for the first time, it's going to feel like you're playing the game for the first time, and that's something definitely memory-wise I would love to be able to relive, because all of these games will never get the first playthrough back. And that's just what it's like to be a retro gamer. There's games that we played that we absolutely fell in love with back in the day, but you're never going to get that first playthrough impression back. I just wish I could wipe my memory and not remember playing something like Grim Fandango so I could experience it for the first time again. But these decomps and recomps are about as close as we get to that reality. Now, one game that has a recomp that I finally finished that I didn't actually beat back on Nintendo 64 is Perfect Dark, because this game came out late, and honestly, the slideshow frame rate really did put me off completing some of the later levels. It was only once the Nintendo 64 Turbo Core and the performance patch were out that I played the game from start to finish on quote-unquote real Nintendo 64 hardware, and I absolutely loved it. And with this recomp, you get that Nintendo 64 look, but now you're going to get it at a rock-solid frame rate with all of the bells and whistles of the modern era, while it still looks like a Nintendo 64 game. But for me, the Nintendo 64 original, when it released, was just too slow, just too much of a slideshow to enjoy. But leave me a comment down below and tell me how you felt about it. But now you can play it today on a modern system, and it's 100% good to go. And it's also going to be 100% your next soundtrack sample. 35 seconds, I'll be right back with a couple more games.
Huh? What? What? Target sighted.
I mean, it sounds like Perfect Dark, and that's all you could really ask. But as we move on to later levels, again, the increased frame rate in this one just 100% does it for me. There's not much in the way of visual enhancements, it just has that internal rendering resolution bump. But the Nintendo 64 just was not up to par when this game came out. Rare pushed the hardware more than anybody else, but it always felt like their late stage games, the Perfect Darks, the Conker's Bad Fur Days, the Jet Force Geminis, should have been held over for GameCube launch games, because they could make a really pretty game that had a really pretty screenshot and was a ton of fun, but in actual execution, some of their games just ran too slow for me to enjoy. I know everyone has their own opinion on that. Maybe it 100% worked for you, and that is totally cool, but Perfect Dark especially, I just had a lot of issues in the controls, because when that frame rate would lag and everything would chug, trying to actually aim in the game would feel a little bit like a chore. So having this version just makes it all the better. Now moving over to a game I absolutely fell in love with back on Nintendo 64 and still love today. This is Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon, and this is another game that I did a video on last year that got a full recomp version, first for the Japanese ROM and then for the North American English one, and obviously most of my audience is English speaking, so having that English version makes an absolute massive ton of difference. And it's one of those games that has such a weird sense of humor. You see this dude here in the pagoda just talking to you and giving you the story. This is just going to show you all of the weirdest, wackiest stuff you can possibly show you all at once, but you're absolutely going to love playing it. And this is probably, at least as far as games are my concern, my favorite recomp. It might not be my favorite on a technical level, but as far as favorite game just to sit down and play, I've got a soft spot for this one, and I'm so glad to see it here. I love the bright, cheery, colorful graphics. I love the open world design, trying to figure out where to go next. It kind of feels like an action platform RPG in all of the best ways possible. You have different shops to go into, different people to talk to, and it just hits in every single aspect as a game. But compared to every other game I've shown you on the list so far, I feel like it's one that not everyone played. Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Star Fox 64, Super Mario 64, and Perfect Dark. Those are titles that basically everyone played if they played Nintendo 64 back in the day. But Goemon here was definitely a bit of a deeper cut. If you've never played it before, definitely check out the recomp, unless you want the complete Nintendo 64 aesthetic on Mr. FPJ or real hardware, where everything's going to be in 4:3 with the original resolution and the original frame rate. And while this game wouldn't slow down near to the degree of stuff like Perfect Dark, it still could have some issues here and there. And trust me, if you've seen this game before and you didn't think it was for you, just give it an hour of your time. All you have to do is lose an hour if you don't like it, and everything you have to gain is one of my favorite Nintendo 64 games of all time. I would say it's a hidden gem, but enough people know about it that I can't really state that. But I absolutely love this recomp and what it does, and this game also has a spectacular soundtrack, so it is your last soundtrack sample of the video, and I'll be right back. Just some classy loungy elevator music right there. Now the last recomp I'm going to talk about until I close out the video is going to be Dinosaur Planet, and this one's probably the most fun as far as just seeing something that you're never supposed to see before, because Dinosaur Planet never actually came out on Nintendo 64. It was close to completing maybe like 80% of its development until it was moved over to the GameCube and turned into Star Fox Adventures, but the game actually leaked out some years ago, and right now, at least the recording of this video, the recomp actually runs that stock ROM. Now there are some ROMs out there that have patches and fixes, but right now the recomp isn't going to be able to run those, but hopefully soon I'll definitely run an update video when that happens. And this one is the freshest of all of the games on this video, and it is definitely worth checking out. Don't expect a full game here because of course it's an incomplete game and it is going to have some bugs, but from a historical preservation standpoint, I absolutely love to see stuff like this happen, and I'm sure now that it is in a recomp engine, fans and modders are going to go in, improve it, fix up a lot of those bugs, maybe even add in some content, and try to package up the most complete version of Dinosaur Planet that you could actually ask for, because again, it's another late stage rare game and another one that kind of chugs on real hardware but runs exceptionally well here on the recomp, outside of the fact that again, it isn't finished, so don't expect it to run perfectly because there are still a ton of bugs in it. But that is the list of recompiled games on this video, and again, in the description below there is a link where you can download all of the builds. Now of course you need to own the games and bring your own files for those. The actual recomp versions are just software that you have to put the ROM into for it to compile and run, but it really isn't hard. And if you have any questions or comments, leave me one down below and I'll try to help you guys out. But just check some of these out. It basically keeps the Nintendo 64 dream alive in a completely modern way. I absolutely love them. But we're done. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.